You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name is Austin Savage, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko. And we are so glad that you all are here with us today. Kelsey, we have such a fun episode. We are talking about Onyx Storm, which you have read, and I must admit I have not read yet, but I'm excited to read soon as I finish the current book that I'm reading. But we have so many fun, just bookstagram, book talk, just all of the things that we get to explore and just think about from a content marketing lens. But first off, how are you doing? And what is our this or that for today?
Yes, I am doing great. I am very excited about this episode. I mean, I'm just so glad that you randomly decided to pick up Fourth Wing a few months ago so that you could, really be invested in this episode.
I know. We can actually be true friends now. We've always just been fake friends. Yeah. Now we can be true friends.
That was the only thing holding us back. Okay, my this or that. It's true. Well, I feel like it had to be on the topic of reading, since here we are. Apparently the 2025 season of Marketing Should Be Fun is really infused with reading. So it's what we all needed this year. Okay. I'm curious which one you gravitate more toward, Bookstagram or Book Talk? Like, are you heading to TikTok or Instagram to get your reading content?
Ooh, I'm feeling a little weird about TikTok as a whole right now. I have to say,
journey.
Yeah, I don't think I'm alone in that. So, and I know for a lot of people, it's really still weird too, because a lot of people deleted the app and now they can't re-download it, and so it's just it's just a mess. And
it's a hot mess.
So probably Bookstagram right now, more out of necessity, maybe even support. I don't know, for those creators, but I think that's where I'm getting most of my book content right now.
Yeah. I would probably agree. I feel like that's where I'm doing my most entertainment, or I send you funny reels about different, I feel like the shareable stuff is really funny there. I will say I had to go back and listen to some recaps of the books because I was like, hold on, I think I forgot some things. And I really did find some good stuff on the Book Talk world there. It was just easy to search, and people had their recaps, and it was easy to find. So using them both for different reasons.
Yeah, you want to know what still has the better search feature, which we talked about this a little bit in our last one, is that Instagram search feature is getting better, but TikTok search feature is still way better.
I know. The interface of it even is just something different about it.
I know. It's weird. And I imagine that content quantity is similar across both, but I don't know. Just feels like you get what you're looking for more when you search on TikTok.
Okay. But side note, since this is just that fits with our podcast, have you tried searching on Instagram lately though?
I don't know.
Let me try it really fast. Let me see. What do I need to hear? I'll just search Onyx Storm. Okay. My account doesn't do it yet, but I have a lot of people's accounts on my, it does. Okay. So I feel like the search looks different now. Don't you think?
Oh, so
it's a little TikTok-y.
It didn't used to lead with videos. That's interesting.
Yes. And I just feel like the shape and in general, the way it comes up is is different now. So
interesting.
There we go. We'll see.
Wow. I actually didn't know that. I didn't.
I just noticed it yesterday. The plot thickens.
Yes, it does.
The race between Instagram and TikTok.
Does it even exist anymore? I don't know. This is what.
I did
Being
have to
content
chuckle.
marketer is weird. It's weird.
It is. You have to just be ready to pivot on the fly all the time. It's actually a great masterclass in, hey, you should have an email list because people be crazy.
Yeah.
Back to our Onyx Storm content now. Thank you for participating in this episode's This or That.
Yes. Well, we talked about it a little bit on our last episode about just the Empyrean series. But if you are not familiar with what Onyx Storm is, there is a very popular romantasy series, I guess. Is that what you would call it?
I think that's what you would call it.
I'm still learning, but fantasy series, kind of has taken the world by storm in many ways. Started with the book Fourth Wing, the second book in the series was called Iron Flame, and then the third book in the series just came out. It's called Onyx Storm, all written by Rebecca Yarros. You probably have seen something about this. It's a series that Kelsey started reading quite a long time ago. I just read it over our Christmas break this year, and one that we are both in love with, I would say.
Yes, I like to joke. We'll just be honest. The book has just, look at the content trigger warnings before you read it. It's not one that I'm like, hey, I totally think everyone in the world should read this. But the funny thing is my sister is reading it, who's like a senior in high school. And I'm like, cover your eyes. Why are you reading this book? And then my mother bought me the book for Christmas. Pretty sure she didn't know what it was about. So there was just a lot of entertainment around that. But it is interesting. I always think, regardless of, the content in general, when something like this, we talked about this with even Taylor Swift, when a cultural phenomenon kind of like sweeps through, I just think it's so interesting to look at it from a marketing standpoint, from just like a human behavior standpoint. And typically there are so many principles and lessons and reminders that we see on a grand scale when you see something like this just kind of popping up everywhere. It's in Times Square. It's on every, Finder's feed on your Instagram, or there's people talking about it everywhere. So we thought we would just take y'all through a little mini masterclass, reminders about content marketing, of what we're seeing as the storm is upon us.
The storm is upon us. Yes, I think we have kind of 5 key takeaways on what we've seen from the growth of this series on, across platforms and just as a whole, but also just the launch of Onyx Storm and just kind of like content that we've been seeing. So I know the first one, and this is a little bit more inspirational, a little bit more just a general truth about building a brand. But the first one that we have is you have to start. Kelsey, how have you seen just that principle kind of play out with just this series, but also just with the growth of Rebecca Yarros as an author?
Yeah, I just think about all the parts of her work that we don't see. Right now we see her on every Good Morning America and the Today Show. And, I don't even want to think about how many copies of this book she sold. It's amazing. But that was not true forever. We just don't see that part. That part doesn't start to like sweep across all of the platforms. You only get to see kind of it's here, it's happening. So I just was thinking about it the other day of like all of those late nights writing, or all of the edits, or even all the different books she wrote before this. She actually used to write more of like she comes from a military family, like kind of military fiction stories. And those did well, but nothing like what we're seeing now. And so the reminder of not just having to start, but even, I just thought of this morning too, having to trust the process of the journey. And, Onyx Storm just picked back up. Like there were several months, even years in between here after Iron Flame where like we weren't talking about it. And, kind of that like new wave of excitement. And so you have to start, you have to trust the process, and you kind of have to ride the waves. And I think that's true in a lot of brands and businesses and organizations.
Yeah, I think just as much about you have to start is also like you have to not quit, continuing with the process. I don't know exactly how many books she released before Fourth Wing, but I know that she was, really growing in that type of more romance, more of that military fiction kind of direction, to take the chance, and even just like stretch her own brand and stretch her own self as a creator, I'm sure was scary. But I think just that reality of like just sticking with something that you love, it makes such a difference. And, it gives you the opportunity to just connect with more people, but also just connect with people in a deeper way, just from that consistency of creating and sharing and, and letting your journey continue.
Yeah, so true.
I think just the second sort of thing that we've seen from the launch of Onyx Storm, but also the growth of this series, and our second and third points kind of play together, really how we have seen like other people kind of like pick up on the series and like market the books for her. Like it has been much less of the content, even that I have seen approaching the launch, much less of it has been actually from Rebecca Yarros herself, though she has been posting quote graphics from the book. She has been posting like little updates, and her family went on a vacation before the launch, and she was sharing like little tidbits and sneak peeks from at the beach, but was like, I can't wait for you guys to have it in your hands. And there was a lot of content that she was creating as an author, but more so, I mean, we have been seeing so many people just creating content on her behalf to expressing excitement, talking about theories, talking about, just like all of these different facets of the series and the book. And it's been interesting to see just how much of a difference that has made for the launch as a whole. So I have more thoughts, but I'll throw it to you. What have you seen in that vein, and how have they done it?
Yeah. I mean, we always say, I feel like I have learned this even in businesses I have marketed myself before, helping other people market, of like, you really want to create content that kind of leads people down that journey of like, they know you, they like you, they trust you, and they recommend you. And we are seeing that recommendation piece just really work in Rebecca Yarros' behalf, of people who love what she's made. They trust her. They've read the 2 books. They know it's good. And so they're ready to just, talk about her content however they can. It was really fun to see 2 different ways this was happening. There's so many, but 2 specifics was people sharing. Yeah. She would post like right before it launched, like little quotes or blurbs, or just like you said, tiny little sneaks, and people would like take it and run with it. I mean, so many shared posts on those of just like their own theories, or like even their, like nervousness of like, it's coming. And then also, I think the kind of almost like the humor and the entertainment around it all, it's become part of our pop culture. And so those characters, there's content created about the characters, people pretending to be the characters, voices, trends, funny things. And so just that entertainment of like, we still get on social media and want to feel like a person, and, take a break from the heaviness of our day, and even a reminder of like not taking our content so seriously. There's just a lot of funny, enjoyable connecting points that people are creating. And I think that's what you see start to just spread like wildfire.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this has huge implications for any brand that is doing content marketing. I think for this series specifically that we're talking about, like the only reason that I found out about it is because my wife finished Fourth Wing, and I heard her from like upstairs. She was like, ooh, and she was just like so excited. She walked downstairs, she handed it to me. She was like, you will like this book. And I was like, okay. And I started reading it, and I did. I loved it. I fell in love with the series, and it like reminded me that I like reading, and that I love, stories. And I think that principle of just what happened there is, that is somebody not connected to the brand, feeling connected enough to the story, and feeling, being given enough value from the product, that they are wanting to market it on your behalf. And as we're thinking about how we want our content marketing strategy to work for us, that is what we want. I mean, we want to be giving so much value and so much, connection to our audiences that they inherently, just like, even like without a second thought, they want to recommend us, and they think of people that would also benefit from, being connected to your brand or the products that you are creating, or the mission that you're, trying to accomplish in the world. And so that is why we talk about those 3 pillars, of content marketing. It's why we talk about adding value. It's why we talk about building trust and creating community, is because it helps other people do the work for you and spreading the word about your brand.
And that value doesn't always have to be, here are 4 ways to make your reading life better. Like, it's fun. Exactly. It's exciting. It's a story. Sometimes we just, get too serious in our brain and start to compare. And I think there's just a lot of proof here that there's so many different ways to help people find value from you and want to recommend you to other people.
Yeah. On that same vein, I know the third thing that we have on our list is user-generated content has just skyrocketed for this series, and has been a huge promoter of this. And what's really interesting is Rebecca Yarros is on tour right now, and they've done such a good job of engaging the creators who have been marketing this book for her. I know, like, I just saw a post this morning. There's a podcast that I started following. I think it's called the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, and they talk about which, yeah, whatever.
I love it.
They talk about like fantasy series as a whole,
Mm.
but they specifically have, been creating a ton of content around the Onyx Storm release, and they are hosting the next stop for her series, or for her tour at the start of February. And I'm like, that's just such a great way, to honor the work that they have done, in that vein, and also just like to continue to create interest and engagement and excitement for people who even feel more connected to those creators than they do to, like Rebecca Yarros as an author, something like that. So what have you seen in that vein, and kind of what takeaways has that created for you?
I think that just shows that likely the people on her team are like in touch with what's happening in our culture and in our, even the marketing society. Like, yes, there are still so many valuable reasons to go to like brick and mortar bookstores. I mean, I'm here for that and I love that, but I think it's just a good reminder that it's kind of like the influencer culture we see. There is so much leverage in letting your product be recommended to people who already trust the person who's recommending it. So like you're saying, that podcast, they already have a huge listener base who trusts them. That is a genius move on her part to, give them value by bringing her content there, but also to leverage that, honestly, to all those people who are already invested. And we see this play out in so many different ways with different brands. And so I think it's just a good nod to, there is a lot of value in UGC type of content, and that can look so many different ways, not just our typical, like we think of that with someone making a reel for you, but that's true in a lot of ways. I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I think a lot of the UGC I'm seeing is just, that's what is keeping Onyx Storm in my mind, is the different reels or things that just pop onto my feed that are not coming from the author specifically, but just from people who love books, who are creating fun content, whether that's, recaps or funny character, scenarios, and just things that are lighthearted, make you laugh and keep you connected to the topic and the idea. I am curious too, this is like totally out of left field and not really connected to UGC, but I wonder too, like with the fantasy genre, if we're seeing a rise, it feels like we're seeing a rise in interest in that. And I don't know if that's just because I've never read it until now. I think that Fourth Wing was one of those books that kind of melded people together who maybe were like not fantasy readers, but it was like enough of a pop culture phenomenon that they were curious. There's enough like divergent type vibes, or kind of that like dystopian vibe, to keep it a little less like whatever else other fantasy books have. I don't even know. I know I never was one. And so it is fun to kind of wonder too, just the way that UGC content has even invited people from the fringes kind of into this genre.
It is really interesting. I mean, I remember for you, like you specifically were like, this book feels like a very grounded fantasy. You were like, there is dragons, but I don't know, there's not like fantastical like races of creatures.
Yeah,
and
there were still like
and
people or humans. Yeah.
And so it does feel like a more maybe grounded or slightly more in the lane of realistic sort of fantasy.
Until you try to explain it to your husband and he's like, they're doing what? Yeah. Who's doing this? And I was like, never mind, it's actually fantasy.
And then you're like, well, actually they have magical powers and they're connected to dragons. So super realistic.
It's totally fine.
I think that you are absolutely right. It's been really interesting to see just that kind of melding of people. And I do think that I have, started to see more content and just more people kind of like leaning into that. A big takeaway for me kind of in that user-generated content lane, I remember like 6 years ago, Gary Vee used to talk a ton about how it was like, if you like something, like you've got to start creating content about it. If you're really passionate about a topic, like lean into it and like be one of the creators that can benefit from that passion and that interest. And I think some of the brands that we have seen develop, not only as a result of, Fourth Wing and the Empyrean series, but also just from this gained interest in, fantasy series as a whole, has been a really great sort of proof of that reality. Is that, for a lot of these creators that have taken the time to launch a brand that allows them to just talk about fantasy books, talk about Onyx Storm, talk about like all of these things, what they have done is been able to build an audience from, something that they are interested in. They're given opportunities to do like really cool things with their life and, interview the author of that series they care about and, talk to other creators in that same space, but also begin to build a business around that passion that for those creators will extend beyond the life of this series. As they're gaining listenership, now they're going to be able to shift that towards other series that comes out, or other things that they are enjoying, and their listeners will care that they're enjoying that because they've proven that brand of their own. And I think that is just such a great takeaway for content marketing overall, is that beyond how we think about it just for our brands, beyond how we think about it for the growth of businesses and organizations, we also just have to think about it from that overarching reality of building a brand. And if you are listening to this and have passions and have curiosities, like, there is a lane for you to build a brand that is fun for you to build. And that matters, that's fun and that's exciting. And that's just such a cool opportunity that still exists through content.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the perfect setup too for our fourth point of like, there really is an audience for everything.
Yes.
I wonder, I think we've even seen this with a lot of different clients we both have talked to, of doubting that, like, okay, but I care about this, but like, that's weird. No one's going to care, or it's not going to work, or, all the different excuses. And I think you can look around everywhere in content marketing right now and see like direct evidence against that. There are subcultures and, subcategories for everything under the sun on Instagram or on TikTok, or there's podcasts about pretty much any topic you could want. The people who are doing it well are the ones who have fully leaned in and who have embraced it. You can't really do it halfway. We sense that as content consumers of like, if you really care or you don't. And if you're just leaning into, and it doesn't always have to be something that feels weird to you, or, that you're like thinking is a little fringe, but there's certainly a case to be made that even if it is, there's an audience for it. And I think Onyx Storm is a great example of that.
This principle too is like another reason that we often talk about just that authenticity in your marketing as a brand. Because I know that there are a lot of people who are listening who are like, that's great. Like, my business is in an industry with a lot of other similar businesses, or my organization, is doing something that there are very similar organizations doing the same thing. That doesn't really hold that much weight for me, but it does. Even for a business, or even for a topic that there are other people, doing similar work or creating similar content about, when you can lean into how you are different, which often has to do with those internal workings of, who you are. And again, that like unique aspects of how you approach the work that you're doing, and the passion that you have for that topic or for that industry inherently sets you apart, because you are unique. Your people are unique. Your approach to that problem you're trying to solve is unique. And just like we're seeing that there is an audience for any type of content, there is an audience for you. Like, there is an audience for your cares and interests and passions that is unique from the audiences that some of your competitors or peers in the space might garner, kind of like gather together.
Yeah. I think it can be easy to listen to that, that encouragement, which is really good encouragement, and then feel like you have to go you're like, okay, but what's my thing? Or like, it feels like this elusive target you have to hit. And I think we talk all the time about how we tell our clients, we need to talk about that again, because no one heard it the first, like, people have to hear it again. You think the content that we need to share is way more complicated than it is. I think the same principle applies here. The thing that is probably unique or special, or your like little twist on things, is something that just feels so true to you that it doesn't feel different, but it is. And I can think of a few examples here. I have one client who shares about, it's kind of like a styling client, and there's like certain colors and just how to wear your best colors and how to feel confident and how you get dressed and all of that. And a lot of the different peers that she has are, giving people links to outfits and like helping them find different outfits that fit the right season and all of that. And that is great. And she does that sometimes. But I think what's unique about her is that she really comes from a place of, I'm sorry, I shared this outfit with you, but I don't have links for it because it's literally been in my closet for 4 years. And the value of that is the service I provide you helps you do the same thing and build this closet where you don't have to go buy something new every day, X, Y, Z. So again, that is a very small thing. It probably doesn't feel that exciting to her, but I do see it be the thing that sets her apart and that people are drawn to. And then secondly, I can think back to when I used to, sell my essential oils back in the day. It was such a viable, amazing business for me, and it grew so big. And I think part of it was because I would say, I'm the girl who has my bottle of oil in one hand and my Doritos in the other. And, you know, it's kind of a world where you had to be like so crunchy and so strict on everything. And I really wanted to bring people in of like, you can have both and you can kind of baby step your way in. And so both of those examples are very small things, did not feel like something, you know, legendary to my personality or to her personality, but are things that people connected with and kind of built us a space for our lane and our audience.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, but that is also the outcome, is connection. And like, what a great example of, you know, those things we talk about it all the time, is like those things that often feel small to you are often those huge opportunities for content to be created that feels accessible. And when we do that, when we're confident enough to kind of lean into those aspects of, you know, the things that we take for granted, perhaps, or that don't feel brand and, you know, life changing, that is like those are those little pockets that connection is found. And that is, I mean, that's how you build a brand, is through your connection. I love that. Also, this is the most random thought, but if I now will like literally sit and watch those videos from these creators that we're talking about that like rank like it's like ranking book boyfriends. They're like, you know, it's like the automated generator, and it like shows up and it's like a character they have to put them on, like, ooh, is this like a 9 or is this like a 1, or like where do I put this? And I will sit and I'll watch those and send them to my wife, and I think that they're very funny and very very just like I don't know, like very easy content to consume. There is content for everyone.
There is content. There's a place for your content. We promise.
Our last point here is a fun one. And I mean, this is one we talk about it all the time, but I love kind of contextualizing it here. And I mentioned it slightly earlier in the episode. Don't be afraid to try something new with your content. You know, Kelsey, you were highlighting that she wrote a lot of, you know, more typical fiction, you know, before she leaned into the fantasy and the romantasy kind of style of writing. And that was a big jump for her. I know even in like the acknowledgements at the end of Fourth Wing, I remember reading, you know, her words about just like how big of a step it felt. And just, you know, she had a lot of gratitude for not only her publisher, but just a lot of the people on her team for guiding her through that, helping her, you know, with the editing process and just like thinking of the story flow, just how it was different than, you know, the other things that she had wrote. And because she leaned into something different, something that felt scary, you know, she wasn't guaranteed success, but she saw it. And, you know, by being courageous, by, you know, stepping out in that different way, there is so much value that we can often see almost just by testing the waters. There's no way to find out if you try, you know, that that kind of lane.
Yeah, it's so true. Even in her, I don't think this is a spoiler, but even in her acknowledgements from this last book, she mentioned this is her. She's like, thank you for helping me write the genre I like the most. And so to think about her writing all of those other books when there was this other thing she loved even more. And just to imagine if she would have never had the bravery to step into that, like, that is likely what she was, you know, a huge part of who she was made to be. So I just love seeing people step into what they really care about and what they're made for. I think it's safe to say too on this one that she, you know, she didn't just like dip her toe into romantasy.
She was
went
like, full in. Yeah,
I'm going to go all in. The dragons are going to talk to each other. The humans and the dragons are going to talk to each other. It's fine. And we love it. And so, yeah, just that reminder. I mean, we've kind of said it all throughout this episode of don't be afraid to try something new, do what you love, lean all the way in. We even briefly touched on this last episode when we did our very super long introduction of all of our favorite accounts that we've been following, of the Wonderlet account that I talked about and how you could scroll back and see in her feed when she started to try something new and how her content kind of exploded. And also, let's just normalize, not every time you try something new will your content explode. That is just real life. So hear that here and just be, you know, we want to normalize that. But often it is kind of a gateway or a step towards just something kind of shifting and changing for you. And I think we see that with Yarros. We see that with a lot of accounts on Instagram and a lot of content platforms in general. And just the encouragement for you too. The worst thing that happens is you're like, oh, that didn't work. I'll try something else. And from a granular standpoint, I think we even see content platforms letting people do this with Instagram's trial reels. Try something new. You never know what will happen. And it's just content at the end of the day. So like you always say, you know, there are no rules. Don't take it so seriously. Do something you love. Have fun with it.
Yeah. Just yesterday, I was on a call with a potential client and kind of said the phrase. They were like, approach it that way. Like we were just like, we don't do it that way. And, they were kind of talking about slightly content, but slightly just their sort of approach to their work. And, it was just kind of this dance around, like, I was trying to get a feel for like how we could sort of push a little bit on their approach to building their brand. But their kind of initial hesitance was just that initial kind of shock of like, we don't do it that way. Like that's just not how we do it. And I think so many of us can kind of get into that same sort of like mindset. And sometimes that can be true and can be valuable. But other times it can really limit us, as we're thinking of like, well, I've just never done that. So like it feels uncomfortable. So I'm not going to, lean in that direction, or just like, people don't expect that from me. So like, I can't give it a shot. There is maybe truth to some of that hesitance, but it is not the whole story. Is that there is so much opportunity beyond those things that either feel uncomfortable to us or that are different from what we have done in the past. And as we have seen with this series from Rebecca Yarros, is that in that discomfort or in that fear, there is opportunity that can be found. Not always, but there is opportunity that can potentially be found. And so with your business and with your brand, don't be afraid to lean into those aspects of your work that you don't usually talk about, or you haven't highlighted, or are completely new to you. And in the same way with your content, don't be afraid to push yourself and to try those things that are different than the content that you typically have created in the past.
So good. I feel like we need to end with this very important question.
I'm stressed.
Do you say Zayden or Zadin?
There is no one who says Zadin.
Oh, yes, there is.
Who the heck is saying Zadin?
I guess that's your
answer.
Get
them off the internet.
Well, we will not judge you if you need to take a break from your business and read the whole book today. But when you're ready to come back, we hope this episode inspires you in your content marketing.
Do you say Zadin?
I do not say Zadin.